Good morning, children. Today I'm going to teach you how to implement file processing and how to handle files in Java. So basically, file handling means that reading from and writing data to a file. So first of all, we must know what is the use of this. So actually, file handling means that during the execution time, you will be able to store some data. And later on, if you want, if you wish, you can use that data. Because if we write simple Java programs, what happens? Once the execution of the program is over, the data is lost. The data which you actually supplied during the runtime. So that is lost. So if we want to again process that data, so there are two ways. Either you supply the data from the scratch again, from the beginning, or resupply, we can say, or you can read the data from the file which you have already stored. So children, in your syllabus of class 11th, only writing and reading binary files are there. So we will be going to see some examples of this. But before I proceed, I would like to explain you what is exception handling, because exception handling is the most important thing which is needed during the reading and writing or any file processing. So what is exception? So first of all, you must know what is exception. Exception is nothing but it is any unwanted situation during the execution of the program. Or exception handling is the process or is the method of, it is the method of handling anomalous situations during the execution of the program. Whatever, if such exceptions occur, then how to handle, how to rectify, how to control these situations. So children, now here I'm just going to show you some runtime exceptions. Suppose this is the array and you want to initialize this array by the size which is negative. So if you write this, you see what happens. You will see that here you can see on the screen negative array size exception. It simply means during the runtime this exception is raised and which tells us that the size of the array cannot be negative. This is the first. And suppose here if this is the array of size 10 and here you have stored some values like uh, in the array, which is, suppose this is what you have stored, and if you want to access the value, suppose you want to access the value which is stored at A5 index. Now you see that here the value which is stored at A5 index is 5. Got it? So suppose if I am storing it as I into 10, you will be able to see that the value which is stored at A5 index, which is 50. But and the value which is stored at index number 9 is 90. But if you try to access the value at index number 10, what will happen? It will generate one error, and that error is array index out of bound exception. So children, this is the error because here the size of the array is 10 and the indexing will go from 0 to 9. Got it? So this is what you can do. Now one more thing is that, so these are the runtime exceptions. So children, if you want to handle such situations, definitely it is exception handling. So what is the need of exception handling? I would like to tell you. Children, first of all, I want to explain you one basic example of that. Suppose this is your cabinet of the PC, and at this point the CPU is installed, which is central processing unit. And here is actually your hard disk is installed. This is a this is your CPU and this is your hard disk. Okay. And one more thing I would like to tell you, suppose you have installed Java and the scope of JVM is this. This is your JVM. So what is the need of exception handling now? So children, during the file handling, you all know that files are stored only on secondary storage devices. And these devices are like hard disk or your pen drive or any other device. Got it? So if the control which is responsible to execute Java program leaves this scope and comes to read the file which is stored here, in case of any error occurs, who is going to inform JVM that this particular error has occurred? So for that purpose, exception handling is needed. Actually, for every status of the running processes, the JVM must be informed. And this method or mechanism is done by exception handling. So exception handling, or we can say that it is also an art through which we can handle anomalous situations during the execution of the program. So children, now I'm just going to give you one simple example, and after that, definitely you will be able to write or create some files. So today I'm just going to show you how exception handling is very much important. So children, here I'm just writing throws IO exception. This is the method which is very much needed when you use children. This package is responsible for input and output, any type of input and output. And here I just want to show you some user input without using a scanner class. I hope you all must know. This is the method. This is a class of this input output package, and where children, this is the class, and here what I'm going to use it, I'm just going to write in here. Now input stream reader, this is the class. Here it is input stream reader. Now children, there are two classes I have written, and these classes, what is the role of the first class input stream reader and what is the role of the second class buffer reader? Actually, this class input stream reader, with the help of this system.in keyword, this system.in is connected with the keyboard which is responsible to receive the data from the keyboard. So system.in actually represents the input stream which is connected with the keyboard. So whatever we are going to type will be read by this input stream reader class, and further that data comes and get stored within a buffer. This is suppose a buffer, and from that buffer we read the data with the help of this buffer reader object, which is buffer reader class, and then only that data get stored in a particular memory location which is represented by a variable. So here variable is nothing but it is a named memory location. I hope you all know. So using buffer reader, we can just write we can implement user input. Suppose here I'm just want to input some value like integer value I want to input. So here this is the function which converts a string to integer, and here I'm just writing br.readline. So what happens, whatever you type here, enter number, whatever you input will get stored within this variable, and before that that value will get converted to integer type. So here you can see that you have entered a number 12 and 12 got stored in memory location which is being represented by this variable a. Okay, one thing I would like to tell you, if you remove this, you can see that this read line, this keyword becomes this function. Actually this is not a keyword but it is a function, gets highlighted, get underlined by a red line. You can see that it simply means this statement of Java is very prone to raise some exceptions, and that is actually how to control that. In order to control that, we should write throws IO exception. So basically for this read line method we are writing throws IO exception. In class 10th, I hope you all must have studied. So there are two methods of user input which you must know. The very first method is a scanner, which you all know, and the another method is buffer reader, which is this one. So if you want to input any float value, then there is another way of doing that. That is float dot parse float br.readline. This is another way of. So this is how we can input a float value. Now we can input a double value also. Double dot parse double, that is we can input. So for this read line method, we need to write that throws IO exception. So actually, what is the purpose of throws IO exception? So children, this throws keyword, what it does? This throws keyword actually it sends a control to an error handling code which controls such exceptions. And basically the exception which is raised by this Java statement is only input output exception. So in order to control that input output exception, we have written this statement here along with this main method. So now I'm just going to show you some methods, but it is not proper exception handling. Proper exception handling is always implemented using try and catch block. You all must have studied try and catch block. So first of all, the statements which are very prone to generate runtime exception must be kept within try block. So if I write a try block, and you see that here I have written some statements like suppose I have written enter first number. Here I have written enter first number. So this statement which is read line, because of this only this exception can be raised. So we have written that, and here I'm just going to control that exception. In spite of writing throws exception, I have written within catch block this IO exception I have written, and IO exception is a class and double E is the object of that class. So if try catch, what is the job of try catch? This try block, that job of this try block is just to identify any exception, and then it transfers the control to another block which is actually a catch block which is responsible to handle that exception. So here in this code, if any exception is raised by this read line method, will definitely eliminated or controlled by this IException catch block, this catch block. So that's why this has been written. So now here inside that we can simply write the object of or any our message. Simply we can write this object or our own message we can write. Okay. Now this is the first thing which we have done. Now I'm just going to execute. See what happens. Children, this is just asking to input one number and I have entered and there is no error. But children, suppose I am just trying to input any other value. Suppose in place of number I'm just entered alphabets. So see what happens. Another exception has occurred. So which I have not written there. I have controlled only input output exception, but I have not controlled this number format exception. So why this number format exception has occurred? Just because when you have entered any text and that text we cannot convert in integer, that's why this exception has occurred. What is the what to do next? So we can write number format exception, and this is the object of the number format exception, and here I'm just writing my own message. The format is not supported. So children, here this message I have entered. Now you can see that when I input that, suppose I'm just giving one number which is 34, so it's okay. There is no error because it is not generating any error. But if I try to input any other value, suppose I'm just trying to just give you some alphabets which cannot be converted into integer. So see, the format is not supported. It simply means that with the help of exception handling, the program becomes more user friendly and the programs become more clear. I hope you people have understood. Okay, now one more example I want to give you, children. Suppose you want to input two numbers and the second number which I am going to input, here I just want to input second number, and that is B is ss dot sorry, B is integer dot percent br dot read line. The second number I have entered, and here I am just writing A is equals to C is equals to A upon B. And here simply I want to print the result, which is result is C. Now you can see that the first number is 100 and the second number is 3. You can see that the result is 33. There is no issues. It is an integer, that's why it is giving you only integer value. Okay, now the first number is 45 and the second number is 0. Now you can see that another exception has occurred, just because you cannot divide any number by 0, because dividing any number by 0 definitely will return you uh, infinite value that cannot be stored in any variable. So here what to do is we need to catch this exception also. One thing I would like to tell you that if with one try block you can write infinite number of catch blocks. Got it? So here another exception we can write. So here arithmetic exception. So here, and now I am just writing that the second operand cannot be 0. The second operand cannot be 0. I have written that. Now if I execute this, suppose it is 56 and the second operand is 0. Now you can see this error has come. So this is how we can implement exception handling. So children, for file handling, exception handling is very, very important. Okay. So children, one more thing, there are situations when you never know and some of the statements are very important to execute. In such cases, we basically we can use FinallyBlock. So FinallyBlock is a block which is always executable block and which definitely executes irrespective of the exception, whether it occurs or not. So finally, I have finally I have completed. This is the message, and suppose here children, this is the first number and this is the second number. You can see that exception has occurred, but again this message will definitely display because FinallyBlock is a block which always executes. So children, here what you have learned, you have got to know what is exception handling. So basically exception handling is nothing but it is handling anomalous situations during the execution of the program. And now you can see that on how to implement proper exception handling codes. Proper exception handling codes we can implement with the help of this try and catch blocks. So here you can see that I have taken one try block and for which statement I am basically writing these catch blocks for this statement. So this selected statement is very prone to generate runtime exception. That's why it is kept within try block. And there are so many exceptions that might occur in input output exception. If any input output error occurs, number format exception occurs when the text cannot be converted to integer, and this arithmetic exception occurs which is known as divide by zero. So I hope you people have understood this. So one more example children I want to give you. Suppose I want to just calculate the sum of the array elements, and in that case I want to write something like I have written enter array size, and that is this is the statement. I have entered this and now I'm just initializing this array. Now one by one I will be just capturing all the exceptions element. So first of all I have used that, so input output exception definitely I need to handle, so I have done that. And here so first is done. Now see if you execute this, what happens. Suppose the size of the array is -10. See what happens. It is negative array size exception. So simply it simply means that you need to control this. So here you just write and negative array size exception. So here you can write this. Suppose I am just writing my own message. The size of the array cannot be negative. So this is my message which I have written. So suppose it is -10 this time. See what happens. Here this message is coming that the size of the array cannot be negative. Okay. Now one more thing I'm just writing. I'm just going to calculate the sum. So I'm just starting a loop that will go from 0, but by mistake I have written this loop up to size. So definitely this is an error, but if I forgot to or by mistake I have written this and I am writing this, and here I just want to print this. So what to do? Now see what happens. Suppose the size of the array is 5, and here you can see that the loop is starting, but children, the problem is I have not written that. Okay, I have not filled the array. Okay, so here one message, one more loop, and one more thing is there. A of I is integer dot parse int br dot read line. It is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you can see that array index out of bound exception has occurred. And sometimes during the practical exam also you are not you just you are not able to identify where it has occurred or what. So suppose I'm just writing this array index out of exception, and here you can write the message. You are trying to access the index which is not there. So children, this is what you have written. Now see what happens. If you just input this and if you just supply these values, now you can see that you are trying to access the index which is not there. So definitely you will have to see this loop, and if you eliminate this, now execute this. The size is 5 and it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you can see that the sum is 15. So now this program is free from error. So children, before you should start with file handling, you must know what is exception. So I hope you have understood this concept of exception handling, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.